Hello, welcome to St Albans Pottery. My name is Fiona Booy and today we're going to make simple plates out of clay. Ta-da! This one here is a simple plate with feet. This one over here is a simple bowl with some textured patterns inside. And just to help you with quantities, one bowl of clay, about 370 grams, two balls of clay. This one over here ended up being about 1.5 balls of clay. One important tip with this project is to work slowly. On day one, roll out your clay, put your clay in its former, cut off the basic shape and leave it. On day two, the clay will have dried sufficiently and be rigid enough that you can remove the former and then tidy up the pieces. If you are going to put any feet on, do wait for them to firm up before you then start decorating your bowl with slips and paints, because you don't want to squash your bowl flat and squash those feet flat. So what you're going to need is obviously a rolling pin, but to go with that, you need to also have some guides. This will ensure that you can roll out an even thickness. These are 5 mils thick. You will also need a mat to work on. This is a canvas book bag that I've cut up. You could work on an old pillowcase or a tea towel. It's very useful because when you're rolling it out, you can then move the clay. Then you need to actually have a former. So you could either use a bowl, you could use a paper plate, you could use a real plate. You'll also need some kitchen towel. And then the other thing that could be quite useful are for imprinting into the clay various different stamps. So I've got here some stamps, a letter set I got from Tiger months ago, a plant from the garden. Cow parsley also makes a fabulous design. The other thing I've got is some textured fabric that again you might want to roll into the clay and leave patterns behind. Antimacassars are great, netting is great, but perhaps these things are not quite as accessible at the moment given our current situation. Right, so to start with, I've got my ball of clay, which I'm squishing flat. I find it easier to squish it first by hand and then pop it down between my 2 gauges, and then I've got my rolling pin. I'm rolling it, I'm turning it around, I'm rolling it this way, and I'm rolling it round. And again, I'm picking it up and turning it over. You're wanting a nice, even, approximately 5 mil, and you want to make sure that it is the size of your former. My pointy stick. And smooth the edges a bit. Now what you want to do is get your kitchen towel and put that on the inside. When you pick it up, you don't want to pick it up by the corner there. What you want to do is put your hand and flap it over quite nice and gently like that. And you can then centre it. The important thing to do here is you're trying to centre it around the plate. And once you find you've got it centered, you can then use a sponge and push it in. During this pushing it in, you're actually stretching it a little bit, and that's also why we're starting off perhaps a little bit thicker than you would think. You want to compress it a little bit, get it all nice and smooth, and then you can start firming up those edges, getting them neater, getting them tidy. You can use is a chamois leather dipped in water, and that will also help you go around the edges and get that nice and smooth. Now, if you want to, you can press in some designs. I had my patterns and I can press those in, and I might get some of my flowers from the garden, and you really want to rub that in, and that will also bring out a nice pattern. An important consideration if you're using a paper plate as a former, it's going to warp as it absorbs water, and your pot then might be quite rickety. 2 things you can do about it. One, once you put the clay in, you could put some paper towel down, and you can then put beans or sand in, and that would hold it flat overnight while the form dries, like you would line a pie dish. Or if you find it's too wonky, you can add feet. I'm going to let you in here with some technical terms. If you put the clay on top, it's called a hump plate or bowl. If you put the clay inside, it's called a slump bowl. So it is incredible how much clay shrinks. You can see here that this has shrunk overnight and it has lifted itself off. Some good things for you to tidy up edges. The sponge is really good. The rough side you would use first to do the big pieces, and the soft side you would then do to smoothen it. It's also quite a different effect if it's dry or wet. I would suggest starting with it dry and going from there. Don't let this get too dry, otherwise it's quite brittle and then chunks fall off. So it is just getting the timing right when you're doing the tidy up. Another useful thing is a little bit of chamois leather. This I have cut up from a large piece of chamois, and I find again that's very useful for going around the edges. You also might want to use the pointy stick, again just to knock off some of the bigger pieces. And if any wrinkles have dried in the clay, you can wipe them away with a damp cloth or rub them out with the back of a spoon. Or if you want, you can cut off the flange and tidy that up. To make feet, you'll need to roll them out, you'll need to flatten them, you need to cross-hatch and wash them, and then stick them on. You need to press the plate down to attach them. Right, let's get started.